What I'm about to share with you will remain important no matter what happens next and no matter who wins the US presidential election. It is the key to getting a grasp of where we are and where we're going, even if the destination is unknown, and it's largely being ignored. So I wanted to take a moment while we have a lot of chaos swirling around us just to reflect on this one point that I arrived at while I too was trying to take a step back and get an understanding of what is actually taking place. It is just after noon Central Time. So we may have more results by the time that you see this video that could transpire over the next several hours, next several days, or maybe it'll take several weeks. There's a lot of different storylines that can take place in this very moment. But while that is all percolating, what doesn't change is the past. And that's what I found myself reflecting on this morning as I was trying to work through the clutter. That's something we don't want to add to at Smarter News. We want to add clarity to your life, not more clutter. And so I want to focus on what we do know. And what we do know is what happened in 2016. And there are some lessons there for what we are seeing now. 2016 was a very, very tight presidential race. It's hard to remember that now because it was unexpected that President Trump was going to be victorious in that race, according to media groupthink and the polls. President Trump also did something quite extraordinary. He won not one, not two, not three, but all the battleground states. That is a feat that is extraordinary, not just for President Trump, but for any modern day politician. So as soon as the race was called, which was within 24 hours of Election Day, the storyline took a different direction and there was less focus on the actual results. But if you actually go back and look at the results of 2016, we're seeing something interesting play out here as well. And what I want to show you is what happened in two of the closest states in that election. Michigan and Wisconsin, two states you're already hearing a lot about and you're going to hear more about. In the state of Michigan in 2016, President Trump won that state by less than 11,000 votes. In Wisconsin, he won that state by just around 22,000 votes. And as we're looking at the results come in, we're seeing margins that are very similar to this. At this very moment of this recording, it's favoring Vice President Joe Biden. Where we'll end up, though, is another question entirely. And there can be a lot that can take place to either do a recount or verify the votes themselves. This is also key to understanding. Why did the presidential race get called so soon in 2016 if the races were as close as we're seeing now? Well, we weren't in the middle of a global pandemic then, and we weren't dealing with hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. And that has really changed the dynamic of the race. But what was true in 2016 is also true in 2020. We are not getting official calls from the states themselves. Right now, as you're seeing results come in, you are seeing the calls by different media outlets, picking the candidate who wins in different states based on their polling departments or their polling resources. So what we're actually seeing reported is the media reporting the results, not the states officially saying this is the way that the state voted. In Michigan in 2016, you've heard me say this before, it took 3 weeks before the state certified the results in an election race that was so close. So it's important to keep that in mind as well as all these headlines are coming at you on a regular basis. What is the big takeaway from what I'm sharing right now? I think there's one big takeaway and what it means we may not know. The one big takeaway we're seeing between 2016 and 2020 is that a pattern in American politics is repeating with different candidates in vastly different times. The President Trump of 2020 is different than the candidate in 2016. Vice President Joe Biden is not Hillary Clinton. And yet, these same battleground states remain ever important. And the closeness of the race is still there regardless. What's the big takeaway from that? We may not be able to say at this very moment, but I'm reflecting on a conversation we had just over the last 24 hours during our election coverage. I was saying in one of our reports that we're seeing such close races, and this is really the American political system working. And one of you said, and it's a great question, is it the American political system working, or is this just showing us how divided we are as a country? You know, it really depends on how you look at it. Yes, we're seeing really a down the middle division mathematically surprising. But you could also make the argument, if there's two sides to every story, you want both sides to be strong. And the way that the American government is set up is for tension to take place and for that tension to be worked out in the government, hopefully reflecting the will of the people. We'll see if we arrive there. In the meantime, I hope this is helpful. We'll continue to watch the results, but keep 2016 in mind and keep reflecting on what we saw then and how that might be helpful in us getting an understanding of what we're seeing now. Questions and comments, let me know. And as always, more on smarternews.com.